Most people have heard of Dawes Point in Sydney, but how many know the story about the man it was named after? Lieutenant William Dawes was an astronomer in the First Fleet who formed an extraordinary bond with a young Aboriginal woman named Pattegurang. She taught him the local language, which he transcribed in his diaries. Fortunately, they were discovered intact in 1972. The story inspired Stephen Page, Bangarra Dance Theatre's artistic director, and next month the company's latest production, called Pattegurang, will premiere in Sydney. Sharon O'Neill reports.
Pattegurang was one of the most intriguing characters that I'd heard of from Sydney's history.
On a crisp autumn morning, Bangarra dancer Jasmine Shepherd is taking time out from rehearsals to see some very special documents.
Great to see you.
You too.
We've got the Dawes material ready for you to have a look at.
Here at the State Library, curator Louise Animat is taking her through the notebooks of Lieutenant William Dawes.
They're all held in London, but they've created this beautiful website that we all have access to.
William Dawes was a Marine officer in the First Fleet, who was also a recognised astronomer.
There are a lot of fascinations with Mr. Dawes. He monitored the weather, he was into, the whole astronomy, and, he had into philosophy, he was into language. His skill-based and knowledge was really quite diverse.
In 1972, the notebooks of William Dawes were retrieved from the basement of the library at King's College in London. They revealed a rich list of words and translations of the Darug Aboriginal language.
He actually mentions Pattegurang's name as well.
The translations resulted from a relationship Dawes formed with a young Aboriginal woman known as Pattegurang.
We shall sleep separate. You winked at me. To warm one's hands by the fire and then squeeze gently the fingers of another person.
I'm getting a real sense of what kind of person she would have been. Very confident, very brave, very proud in herself, her culture, her totems, who she was within her community, and to be able to have the confidence to share that with someone from a culture from the other side of the planet. So I think she was a very special person.
If she was 15, 16, I think she would have done some woman's business. She would have been passed on lots of knowledge, cultural knowledge, and I always feel like that she was a bit of a chosen one in a way from her community. Yeah, and then maybe don't be so on it. You can sort of keep it a little bit. You just so it floats a bit better.
The story of Pattegurang so intrigued Stephen Page that he's used it as the inspiration for the Bangarra Dance Theatre's latest production.
We're in our 25th year, and I thought it'd be great that we told a Sydney story, a Gadigal story, a Darug story, and a Eora Nation story.
To immerse his dancers into the story, Stephen Page took them on board the Aboriginal cruise ship, the Tribal Warrior.
It was just great to get out on the harbour and sort of have a look out and look at, Middle Harbour and look at the heads and just sort of hear the stories about, botanical gardens and the ground of Bennelong and Bennelong Point and the whole Port Jackson sort of area. So it was just, you just forget, that you're in amongst it, you're always working here, but then when you just step outside and reflect the land that you're on, that was a real good a start to the work, I think.
It was a unique experience for dancer Thomas Greenfield. He's the only performer who's not Indigenous, dancing in the role of Lieutenant Dawes.
Whenever people ask me what I'm playing and what's it like to play sort of like a first contact British naval officer and the atrocities that you would have done to the Indigenous population, is nice to be able to say, well, actually I'm playing a character who is one of the few that singularly opposed a lot of the violence and actually documented language, which was then able to be reclaimed. So it's nice to be in this situation, actually play one of the few positive influences that a white person's had in this culture.
I'm not setting the work at that time, in that period as such. I think it's more about the spirit from that time. It's an abstract world. It's a contemporary, expressive world, but it takes on the emotion and the spirit and probably the attitudes from that time. And she has been a very challenging story to tell.
I love writing music for, you know, that there's an actual story that you can follow or a character. And she's an amazing character.
The musical challenges for this production are left to Stephen Page's brother, David.
Bangarra is a Wiradjuri word. We're on this country. The Gadigal people, the Eora Nation. This is a story from here. And we've never done a story from here. So it was like it was calling us, you know. And she has been a little bit difficult to work with, because I think her spirit's here and telling us, you know, what's working and what's not working. So that's the inspiration. So you sort of, you tune in, or you just sort of embrace where you are, the country where you are, and just let it come.
I love embodying a character, and even if our shows are more abstract, I tend to build a character for myself to put into that dance, to give it more heart and something of myself. So this is really bringing out all of that for me. It's challenging where I can go with transforming myself and finding elements of Padangara that are elements of myself too, things that we might share. And one of those being that her totem and the meaning of her name is grey kangaroo, which is also one of my totems too. So that's one special little connection that I'm finding that's very exciting.
I shall not become white.
The exact nature of the relationship between Dawes and Padangara is the subject of much speculation. After only 3 years in the colony, Lieutenant Dawes was sent back to England for refusing to hunt down a group of Aboriginal people suspected of killing the governor's gamekeeper. Nobody knows what happened to Padangara.
Hopefully the audience will see this honest story of sharing of language, sharing of culture, somehow responding to the what if question, this respect for each other, I think. Two different people, two different skin colours, two different languages, but yet this really understanding of spirit and land and people.